My name is Leilani Thatcher, a tour guide at the Library of Lost Things. This is The Doorstep Project, episode 23, Labyrinth. The idea of a labyrinth goes back all the way to ancient Greece. It actually came from the Greek word labyrinthos, which was the name of the original labyrinth. The legend of the Greek labyrinth is fairly common, but I'll give footnotes for clarity. King Minos commissioned a maze to be built, putting a minotaur in the center. Theseus entered the maze to kill the minotaur, taking a ball of yarn given to him by the princess to find his way back. The maze they built was called the labyrinth, and that word has come to mean complicated maze. The Egyptian labyrinth was a large gallery of hieroglyphics and paintings depicting kings and gods. Many historians, Greek, Roman, and Egyptian, wrote about the majesty of this gallery for years. It was likely a great trove of treasure and history that was unfortunately raided and destroyed over the years. It was built in the 1800s BC with the Hawara Pyramid. Whether the gallery was meant to be a maze or not is unclear. It may have been that it was so big and full that it was easy to get lost in. It's called the Egyptian Labyrinth because one of the first people to document it was a Greek writer. I couldn't find what the Egyptians called it, but it was probably not Labyrinthos. One Roman writer suggested that the Egyptian labyrinth inspired the builder of the original Greek labyrinth. There's no proof of this because there's no proof of a labyrinth built by King Midas. It is possible the story of the labyrinth was inspired by a palace in Crete, but again, no proof. Where does this all lead to? The idea of a maze, a labyrinth, has been around for centuries. People are, perhaps the most overlooked and most visited of all mazes are the catacombs, referred to by the locals as La Catacomba de Paris, or the Catacombs of Paris. Interestingly enough, much like the word labyrinth, the word catacomb comes from the Latin catacumbas, which was the name of their underground burial site used by Christians and Jews from the 2nd to 5th century. So not a French word at all, but usually it has a French connotation because the French catacombs are better known. Okay, so why the history lessons? Because labyrinths are a fascinating concept. The idea of a maze is captivating. Not knowing what's behind every bend, the mystery of it is fascinating. It's innate to human nature to be interested in the unknown. It's why we read the mystery novels or listen to this podcast. It's interesting to not know, and also unnerving. And there is nothing more unnerving and interestingly complex as La Catacomba de Paris. Its history is almost as elaborate and intricate as its tunnels. Paris has a layered history with death, and particularly the burying of the dead. At the heart of Paris in the 1700s was the Cemetery of the Innocents, or Saints Innocents Cemetery. It was behind the Church of the Innocents and contained a large number of Parisian citizens. They estimated 2 million bodies in 1780. The Cemetery of the Innocents buried victims of highway incidents, drownings in the River Seine, bodies from 22 parishes and hospitals, and, of course, the Black Death. The last outbreak of the Black Death in France occurred in 1720, 60 years before the Cemetery of the Innocents was officially emptied. The cemetery was full. It was overflowing, actually. Individual graves may have existed at one point, but over 1,000 years, the cemetery was reduced to a single mass grave, filled to the brim with unnamed corpses. This wasn't the only cemetery running out of space, but it was the largest. Desperately, the people began to search for a better solution, and the quarries made a perfect remedy. Almost. See, in the 1st century AD, open-pit quarries were built by the Romans to extract limestone. In the 15th century, the mining work migrated into underground tunnels. When they were built, they were located outside of the city, but the city expanded past the quarries after so many years. Houses were built on top of mines without much concern. In the 1770s, sinkholes began to take buildings, roads, and people into the quarries. They were soon abandoned for safety reasons, but not for long. After all, the Parisians needed new space for the bones of their fellow citizens. In 1780, the Cemetery of the Innocents was officially closed. In 1786, the quarries were repurposed and consecrated for a new burial ground. From 1787 to 1814, they began the transfer of over 6 million Parisians, officially ending in 1860. The catacombs stretch over 280 kilometers, roughly 174 miles, all underneath the City of Lights. Only a small portion is available to the public. Some find the catacombs of Paris to be disturbing. Some find them fascinating. Personally, I find them inspiring. As I said earlier, Paris has a layered history with death. A tragic one. The Black Plague destroyed lives. 200 million people all across Europe lost everything. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children, whole families. It was devastating. And in the midst of all that grief, the people of Paris worked for 27 years in the dead of night to move the bones of millions so they could finally have a safe place to rest. I can't speak for the hundreds of workers that helped empty the cemeteries, and the view I have on the catacombs may not have been shared with the Parisian citizens. But I am inspired by the dedication and respect the French people have for their ancestors, so many of whom are forgotten. The catacombs of Paris are a labyrinth. Have you ever tried to look at a map of the catacombs? As a museum archivist with a degree in archival studies working through a degree in generalized history, it's still pretty confusing. There are plenty of sections of the catacombs that are still unexplored and plenty that are flooded, unable to be explored. It's illegal to enter any part of the catacombs that is not open to the public for safety reasons. There are pieces of the catacombs that are lost. There are tunnels that will never be seen again, unnamed people in its halls that will never be named. Forgotten ancestors, forgotten family, forgotten lives, all as complicated as the history of Les Catacombes de Paris. As complicated as the Labyrinth. And I don't have any of their names. Luckily for us, this is what the Library of Lost Things is for. Remembering things that no one else does, putting them back in history where they belong. So maybe, just maybe, the next time you visit Paris or Egypt, hear the Greek word labyrinth or the Latin word catacomb, you will remember the people who won't be named across all cultures. Or, at least, I will. Thank you for listening to The Doorstep Project. This audio drama was created and produced by Family Friendly Podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, leave a rating and review on your podcast app of choice or share it with a friend. Leilani and the project will be back next week. Until then, write every day. One day your story could be in a museum. The Doorstep Project is produced by Family Friendly Podcasts. It was written, edited, and performed by AJ Barton. Sound effects for this podcast are provided by Zapsplat. Music used in this podcast includes Reawakening by Kevin McLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license. You can learn more at his website, incompetech.com, or at creativecommons.org. Both music and sound effects have been changed and edited by AJ Barton. Links for websites, information, and contact can be found in the description of the episode. Would you like to submit your story or art to the Doorstep Project? You can find information for story submission at familyfriendlypodcast.com/The Doorstep Project. Information on CC by 4.0 licenses can be found at creativecommons.org.